Hello and welcome to another Lynne and Craig's English live stream. If this is the first time watching, you're very, very welcome. The aim of this live stream is to help you improve your English. And if you've never seen us before, let us introduce ourselves. Lynne, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lynne, and my online business is called Put It Like This, and that's the name of my website then, putitlikethis.com. I'm an online English language teacher, and I specialize in trying to tailor-make courses for people to try to help you find your own voice in English. So if you have a specific objective, then you get in touch with me, you tell me your objective. I listen to your English and we'll try to find the right way to go about helping you improve your English and do what you want to do in English, whatever it may be.
Okay. And my name's Craig from the website mansioningles.com, where we help Spanish speakers improve their English with lots of Spanish language support. And we have a podcast at inglespodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Every week there'll be a new podcast to help you improve your English. And if you're interested in improving your speaking skills, I do have conversation courses over at englishcraig.com. Going to have a break for the summer. This is the last live stream that Lynne and I will be doing until after our European summer here in Spain, and we'll be back in September. So there are some spaces on my calendar if you want to talk to me for 10 minutes for no charge and no obligation. You're welcome to book a Zoom talk with me to discuss the courses in September over at englishcraig.com. So, Lynne, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we thought I suggested the getting ready. We're in holiday. We're kind of in holiday mode. I'm really looking forward to my holiday. I've got 2 really full weeks of work until the end of the month, but then I'll be on holiday. So we're kind of getting into the holiday mood. And then I suggested that maybe we talk about it's a conversation lesson really, and then we'll talk about maybe the great holiday experiences we've had and the ones that have not been so great. So I think you gave the title Holiday Disasters and Dream Vacations. I tend to think of it like a bit like more holiday anecdotes really, because I'm quite an optimistic person, and when I do have a holiday disaster, it's usually great material for an anecdote. So I try to make the best of it. And it kind of gives you meat for good stories. So we thought maybe this would be a chance just for us to reflect on some nice holidays, and we thought we might inspire you. So if you want to join us during this live stream, remember you can interact with us through the chat file, but if anybody's really brave enough, and we've had it in the past, some of you have actually joined the conversation and you can come on. So if you've got a good story to tell about a holiday disaster or a dream vacation, then come and share it with us, because I'm sure it will all put us in a nice mood for our holidays, won't it?
Exactly. So we're going to talk about our best and worst holiday experiences. But if you have any, I know Hemma's watching. Hi, Hemma. If you have any great stories or bad stories and you want to jump in and tell us, then I'll put this link in the chat. It might be easier for you to copy and paste this link into your browser, into your navegador, as they say in Spanish. And come on in and share your holiday stories with us. We'd love to hear them. So we've divided our stories into nightmare experiences and dream vacations. And would you like to go first? It should be ladies first, shouldn't it, Lynne?
No, you go first. Go on, you go first, because you've got some great stories there to tell. Some of them I know a little bit, because you gave me a few. We've written a few keywords so that we can explain some vocabulary to you, so you notice some vocabulary. So did you put those in the banners, Craig?
Yes, I've got those. Yeah.
So we can, at the end of our anecdotes, we can flash up some vocabulary that probably came in our anecdotes. So I saw your the ones that you were thinking of talking. And because we've known each other so long, some of the stories I know.
You've heard,
not all of
you've heard them before.
I've heard, and I think you mine too. But we'll see. But and of course, if you have any questions, then do let us know. Oh, and there's one other thing that I wanted.
Your audio's going strange. Your audio went strange there for a second. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh, it's okay now. It went weird for a couple of seconds. It's okay now.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. So the other thing that I thought I would like to set as a challenge to you as listeners today is that when Craig and I are talking to each other, when we have conversations normally in English, the listener doesn't listen in silence. The listener usually makes sounds and says comments to try to keep the other person talking and to show that we're interested. And I thought if any of you, when you're listening today, maybe you want to notice a little bit about the kind of expressions Craig and I use to encourage each other to keep talking. What kinds of things we say to each other or noises do we make? And that makes for natural conversation. So maybe the rest of you can listen and notice. And do say hello to us if you are there so that we can see you in the chat and we know if you've joined.
Yeah, if you're watching live, please say hi and let us know where you're from. And as I said, if you want to come in and tell a story after we've told one each, then you're welcome to come in and practice your English with us. And of course, if you have any questions on the vocabulary we're using or on anything to do with English, we'd be happy to answer your questions. Just write them in the chat. So shall we start maybe with the nightmare experiences, the worst ones, and then go to the better ones?
The better ones. We start with the bad ones. Yeah. So you mentioned, well, I think, why don't we ask the students, because we've got Jaime. Hi, Jaime from Colombia. Elene, and Hema, hi to you. Craig has got 3 experiences, one from China, one from India, and one from Venezuela. He has a nightmare experience from those countries.
They get gradually worse.
Yeah. So maybe you want to write in the chat, which one do you want him to tell you about first? We'll let them pick. Should he tell the China story, the India story, or the Venezuela story?
Which you've heard, Lynn. You've heard the Venezuela story.
I've heard the Venezuela one. It's a very good story, the Venezuela one.
And they are all true. They are all true stories. We're not making these up. We're not inventing them. They're not made up. They are true stories.
I have to say, when I was remembering mine and knowing a couple of yours, they do sound made up, don't they?
Yeah.
They do sound made up.
We've had quite a full life, haven't we?
Yeah. Has anybody going to choose, or do I have to choose? Come on, India, China, or Venezuela. Please put something in the chat. Tell us that you're there and that you want to know. Which one do you want to know?
One thing I thought was interesting, because we've got 12 stories, haven't we? And 3 of them are from New Zealand, which I thought was interesting.
That's true. There you go. Claudia. Thank you, Claudia. Hello, Claudia. Claudia has said, tell us about the Venezuela one.
But Jaime has gone for the Indian stories. So Jaime's put India twice. I think we'll have to go India first. What do you think, Lynn?
All right, India first. Okay, but you do have to tell the Venezuela story, because the Venezuela story is really good. But the India one, tell us about the India one. It's new for me too. I don't know about the India one.
Okay, I'll tell you about the India one. Now, the first word here is quite interesting, because you look at that word and you go, what? How do I say that word? That spelling is ridiculous. It is strange. The pronunciation of that word is diarrhea. And diarrhea is where you have problems in your stomach, and when you go to the toilet, it's just liquid, and it's really difficult to hold in and not go to the toilet. The way to remember that pronunciation, if you're old enough to remember a group called Dire Straits, so dire is the first half of that word, and Rea, if you remember Chris Rea. And so you put Dire Straits and Chris Rea together and you get diarrhea, and that's the pronunciation of diarrhea. So I went to India with my wife quite a few years ago, and we were traveling around by ourselves backpacking. And when you're backpacking, you carry your clothes on your back. And we had just arrived in a place called Mandi in the north of India at the bus station. And I had a terrible case of diarrhea, and I really needed a toilet desperately. We left the bus station, and it was raining so heavily that we got completely drenched, soaked with rain. There was a heavy downpour, a shower that was really intense.
Was there no toilet in the bus station? Or was it
No,
only when you left the bus station? Oh, really?
no, there was no toilet at the bus station. It was quite a small place, and I just wanted to find a toilet desperately. So we walked, and the first place we saw was a cheap hostel because we had no idea where we were going to sleep. So we found a cheap hostel. It was getting quite late, and because of my bad stomach, I said to my wife, look, we're staying here. We need to stay here. Let's get out of the rain. Let's just find a bed for the night. But when we'd already paid for the room and we went into this hostel, it was disgusting. The bed was damp. Damp is not exactly wet, but it's where there's moisture in the mattress that was coming up through the mattress into the sheets.
That's
And
nasty.
it was this horrible musky smell of damp, and it was impossible to use the bathroom because it was just disgusting. It was smelly, it was dirty, and the smell was overpowering, and it was the worst. Well, I didn't sleep, and my wife didn't sleep. We just laid on the bed, fully clothed, fully dressed, and we just waited until the sun came up until we could leave the hostel. It was the worst night I have ever spent out of when traveling. But the good thing is, or maybe the moral to the story, if you call it a moral, is that whenever we stay in a hotel or a guest house that's not really that great, we say, well, it's okay. It's not as bad as Mandi. It's not as bad as that place in India, because that was the worst place we've ever stayed in.
But that was terrible when you're ill, because I know I've had situations where, I mean, I think when you travel sometimes, I think all of us must have had diarrhea at some point, and it's really awful.
Especially in India.
Especially in places where you know that there aren't facilities and that you might not be able to reach a toilet. It's terrifying. And it happened to me in Africa a couple of times, and then the thing is, you couldn't travel. I just had to stay and wait until I was better, because if you traveled in Africa, you were in a little sort of tuk-tuk, it was called. It was like a little van.
Yeah.
And of course, there were no toilets anywhere, and you would have to stop the entire bus and say, please let me get off, which is what people did. And it was, and I was just more, so when I got ill, I remember I was stuck in a place for 3 days. I wasn't supposed to be staying there, but I couldn't move out of where I was going because I refused to travel.
Yeah, it's a terrible feeling. It's terrible.
It is terrible. Thank God for there's that drug that you can get, isn't it? Imodium. That I always carry Imodium with me now, and it's Imodium is a tablet, and it stops diarrhea immediately, so that you can get home. It's not a good thing to take, because they say usually when you have diarrhea, it's because you've got something bad in your system, and it's better to get it out of your system, not to keep it in your system, because it can make you worse.
Yeah.
So it's not a good idea to stop diarrhea. But the thing is, when you're traveling, it's sometimes essential, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think. Oh, that's a horrible story to start with.
Well, that's a nightmare. That was a nightmare. That night I will never forget.
And were you not tempted to just leave the hotel and go and find somewhere else, or was it because you were ill?
No, it was late. It was late. I was ill. I didn't feel well, and it was raining terribly. It was pouring down.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, the only option really was to stay there and just
Just
wait
stay put.
until the next day. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not
Okay,
nice. Uh-huh.
Lynn, why don't you tell us a terrible story, a nightmare story? And remember, if you're
Yeah.
watching and you want to come in and join us and tell us one of your nightmare stories from vacation or holiday,
Hmm.
then again, while excuse me, while Lynn is talking, I'll put the link in the chat so that you can join us if you want
Yeah.
to. No pressure.
Well, it was a nightmare experience, but it was one of the, I think, most pivotal moments of my life as well. So this is a big epic story, I'm afraid. It might be a little bit longer than yours. I'll try to keep it short though. So this happened in when I was living in Guinea-Bissau. So I was living in Guinea-Bissau for some time. Guinea-Bissau is a country in the west of Africa, and I was working there, teaching English as a volunteer, and I was teaching doctors there. So I was living in the capital, in Guinea-Bissau, and at that time I had just started to go out with with a boyfriend, with a boy who is now my husband. So I had just started going out with my husband now, and we had been invited, he also lived in the capital city, and we had been invited to go away for a weekend party break. So the idea was to go away, and we were going to go to the north of, I think it was the north of the country, to a village where there was another volunteer that we knew. And this volunteer was celebrating his 30th birthday, and he was going to have a party. So this was this lovely little holiday that we were going to have, a weekend to get out of the city of Bissau and also to see the country. My Mariano, my husband, he had been living in Bissau longer than I had,
What was he
so
doing
he
there?
knew. He was also a volunteer,
Was he?
but he
He
was
wasn't
working.
teaching. Was he teaching?
No, he wasn't. He was working for the tax office to help them collect tax revenue, because, of course, the Guinea-Bissau didn't really have any infrastructure. And so, for example, they didn't have any like public departments. And so they were trying to collect taxes to create a country that could, generate income and do infrastructure and things like that. So he was helping with computerizing or trying to automatize tax collection. Anyway, we were really looking forward to this weekend, and I had been in the country for a few months. And I was beginning to find my feet because Guinea-Bissau was a very different experience. So it was quite a culture shock when you first go there. There was no electricity, there was no running water. So there was many things that I got used to. Um, but this was sort of quite exciting for me to go away for the weekend. So we went away, and there there's no sort of public transport in Guinea-Bissau. There's no trains, there's no
No
buses,
buses.
there's no roads, no municipal buses. So the way to get around was on tuk-tuk. So these are private little cars, or mini buses, um, and basically they're private. So you go to this area of land which is supposedly the bus station, but it's not a bus station. There's no facilities, and basically there are little signs up which say different areas of the country, and you go there and you just have to wait in a queue, and you could be waiting there 6 hours, you could be waiting 1 hour, you just don't know. And at
Yeah.
some point, one of these little private cars or minibuses or whatever comes along, stops at the front of the queue, negotiates the price with the people in the queue, and then you get on board and off you go.
It's
All
not a
right.
fixed. It's not a fixed price.
No, it's not a fixed price at all, right? So So the two of us are in the queue. And the thing is, I'd already in Guinea-Bissau, as I say, I had been beginning to find my feet. I knew that it was quite dangerous. I'd been mugged a couple of times. I'd been robbed a couple of times. So you didn't move around anywhere in Guinea-Bissau with any kind of handbag or whatever. You went with the bare minimum. You never traveled with your passport. I never wore jewelry. Money was not in a purse or a handbag. You didn't have anything like that. You had money. The ladies used to keep money down here or in your front pocket, and you took minimum with you. So we had literally, we had a rucksack between us, and I had a spare pair of underwear, right? Because I was going to stay the next night. I had a toothbrush. We had a toothpaste between us, right? So we each had a spare pair of underwear. We had no, we didn't have a spare t-shirt. We had a spare pair of underwear because we were just basically going in what we were wearing. Then there was going to be the party, and then the next day we were coming back home, right? So literally a spare pair of underwear, a toothbrush, and the minimum money that we needed for this trip. And we needed to take vegetables for the party because that was another problem in Guinea-Bissau. You couldn't get fresh food everywhere, and there were no. So when anybody from the city went out to the villages, we used to take vegetables because our friends in the villages never got vegetables. You see. So we were taking the vegetables. So we got on the tuk-tuk, we get there, and it was lovely. And we had this most amazing party. And our friend, because there was a few of us, I think there was about 20 of us, he had bought a goat because in Guinea-Bissau, because there was no electricity, there were no real shops, you didn't have fridges. So if you wanted to eat meat, you had to buy
By
a
the
live
live
animal
animal.
and kill it, right? Now,
Wow.
I had not up to this point, I had eaten chicken and I'd eaten goat, but like in a restaurant, but I'd never at home we'd had chickens, but there was a lady who used to work for us and help us in the house, and we used to give her the money and she would go and buy the chicken and bring it back.
And
She
kill
would
it.
tie it up in the kitchen, and then when it was time to sacrifice the kitchen, she had to say to me, Lynn, it's time. And then I would go in the other room because I couldn't bear to see the chicken being killed. But it was the only thing you could do because then afterwards we had to eat it, right? And
Yeah.
so we ate it. But I'd never seen this. So when we come to this party, Derek, the guy whose birthday it was, he'd bought a goat, and the goat was live, and it was a little pretty goat, and we were all stroking it and everything. And then when the time came, his neighbor came to kill the goat, right? So that we could eat something. And I thought, wow, it's about time. I have to grow up, I thought to myself, and I have to watch this slaughter of the goat because I'm in a country now and this is the culture. And I've come from a very privileged place where I didn't see animals being slaughtered. I just eat them. And I thought, no, I have to say it. And my husband actually helped kill and skin the goat. I mean, he couldn't do it, but he was helping holding down. And I watched and I forced myself to watch the whole thing. Everything was done.
Did
The
you
goat
become a
was.
vegetarian after this
No,
experience?
I didn't. No, I didn't. The goat was killed in a very, I mean, in a very, it wasn't traumatic because the people there know what they're doing. They treat the
Yeah.
animals,
With
well.
respect.
The goat was calm, and the animals are treated because you eat everything. Nothing is left.
Yeah.
So there's no waste or anything. And I thought it was okay. I didn't become a vegan, but anyway, so I was really proud of myself. I thought, wow, I'm really, now I'm really beginning to feel a part of this place. And then we had a beautiful evening. We had a fantastic goat stew that Derek's neighbor, because they know how to prepare the meat, they know how to cook it. So that the neighbor's wife had made this lovely stew, and we all had this lovely party. And we had this stew, and it was moonlit under the stars. And there were so many of us, and we couldn't all sleep inside the house. And we slept outside under mosquito nets hung from the tree, and it was just brilliant. It was just superb. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And then the next day, we went back into the village with our little rucksack. I had my clean underwear on and I cleaned my teeth, and we were waiting to get the transport back, and the
Yeah.
transport didn't come, and the transport didn't come. And then after 5 hours, we discovered there was news through that there had been a coup d'etat. Maybe we should
Oh,
put that in.
wow.
A coup d'etat
Coup d'etat.
is when the military try to overthrow the government, and basically fighting had broke out in the capital, which is where we lived. And there was this massive like military coup d'etat happening. And so nobody was going back to Bissau because it was dangerous, because the army was fighting the presidential palace and there was fighting on the streets and all of this. So we went back to Derek's house. And so we had to wait. And we were listening to the radio because it was before the time of mobile phones and all of that. There were no mobile phones. It was in the 90s. So we went back, and a very long story short, basically, we never got home. We never ever got home. So we
Oh,
were
wow.
stranded in Derek's house.
How long for?
And then, well, later that evening, some missionaries who were about 30 kilometers away, they had received news on the radio, on their radio transmitter, that the whole country that was in a state of political unrest, and that the expats like us, we had to try, they got a message to us, and basically our embassies, the Spanish embassy and the British embassy, well, we didn't have embassies, but we had consuls. The consuls had been trapped themselves. So the British consul was not functioning, the Spanish consul was not functioning, and the only embassy that there was in Guinea-Bissau belonged to the Americans. So the Americans were in control of everything. And the Americans sent word to the missionaries to give us word, and they told us to make our way to another town. So the missionaries gave us a lift on the back of a truck, and we were transported to another town where the other volunteers, the other European volunteers and South American volunteers, American, Canadian, well, basically everybody who was not a national, they were grouping in this town. And literally we had the clothes on our backs. That's all we had. And I had an extra pair of underwear. And we each had a cloth that was a towel, because towels in Guinea-Bissau, they didn't dry. So you didn't have a proper towel, but you had a big piece of cotton fabric, which you used as a towel. We had that with us. And that was very useful because you could wrap it around yourself like as a dress,
Mm-hmm.
or the men used to wrap it around their waists as a kind of sarong. So we did have that as well. So we sheltered in place. How do you say shelter in place? Which means we had to take shelter where we were. So we never got home again. And then after 6 days, the Americans had arranged a ceasefire so that people stopped fighting for, I don't know, I think it was about 12 hours or so. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the evacuation window. And we had to borrow money because none of us had any money, because we'd only taken the bare minimum for the weekend. So we had to pool all our money, and the people from Guinea-Bissau were very nice, and they could not leave the country, but they lent us money. They got us fuel. We managed to get a bus, and then we drove to the Senegalese border, and the Americans arranged for us to pass the border because none of us had passports.
Oh, your
So
passports were in the
they were
place
all at
where you
home
were
in
staying.
Bissau.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, they were all, because we didn't travel with passports because it was too dangerous. So, but the embassy had arranged, and we were able to pass after several hours. This was like 4 days later. We were able to pass into Senegal, and then we got to Senegal, and then the British embassy and the Spanish embassy, they took over from the Americans, and they put us up in a luxury hotel, which was quite a big like contrast, because they had taken over these holiday hotels in Dakar in order to house all the evacuees that were coming out of the country. So we were suddenly in this 5-star hotel, but we were very dirty.
With your
We had no
toothbrush and your
clothes.
spare
I
underwear.
had toothbrush and one pair of spare underwear. So we get into the hotel room and it was beautiful. We had a shower, me and my husband. We took everything off, all our clothes, because we only had the t-shirt, the shorts, we had a spare pair of underwear, and we had the towel, and they were filthy by this time. So we put them in the bath, we washed them, we hung them out in the bathroom, and we went to bed. And we thought the next day they'll be dry. And we had just fallen asleep when there was a knock on the door. And we said, "Who's this?" At like 3 a.m, knocking and banging on our door. And my husband, because I mean, we were naked, my husband got up and he grabbed a towel from the bathroom and he opened the door. And there was a massive American Marine, because the Marine soldiers were also staying in the hotel because they'd been doing helicopter evacuations from the center of Guinea-Bissau. We came across on a boat, but there was a whole platoon of Marines, and they were in the hotel, and the hotel was on fire.
No, you're
And the
joking.
Marine, I'm not, and the Marine was knocking on
That's
the door, and
unbelievable.
he said, "Ma'am, you have to leave. You must evacuate now. The hotel is on fire." And Mariana went, "What?" And he put his head out of the door, and the corridor was completely no visibility, the smoke from the fire. And so he ran in the room and he said, "We've got to go. We've got to go."
Yeah,
So I had a sheet. He had a sheet because our clothes were in the bathroom
yeah.
drying. We each had a bed sheet and we had to evacuate turning right, and we had to run out of the hotel and congregate by the hotel swimming pool. We saw people who were escaping through the windows from the fire on knotted bed sheets. You know how you tie the bed sheets together, and they were trying to fall down on the bed sheets, and the other Marines that were in the hotel were trying to help whoever it was to get out of the. And we just couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe that we'd been evacuated from one country, and on the
It's
very first
it's
night we were
literally
in the middle of a
literally
hotel
it
fire.
it's literally out of the frying pan into the fire.
Into the fire. That's another
Literally
expression. Exactly. And
unbelievable.
so and so we had to spend that night. So I had gone from having one change of clothes with one spare pair of underwear
And
to a
one
bed
toothbrush.
sheet and one toothbrush to a bed sheet. Was all. Anyway, the next day, fortunately, our room had not burned. Our
Right.
room had not been destroyed. So
And
one
your clothes were nice
warning
and dry,
fire.
nice and toasty.
A bit smelly, a
A bit
bit
smelly, a
smelly.
bit
But
smoky.
the next morning, we had to sleep outside by the swimming pool. And the next morning, when the fire brigade, they gave us permission to go into the room and rescue our belongings. Our belongings, 2 pairs of underwear. One, well,
And a
it was
toothbrush.
and a toothbrush. So we got all of that, and then they had to move us to another hotel, another luxury hotel, where we got into the luxury hotel, and then we were in there, and we were there for 3 or 4 days, and the embassy then gave us some money. We got some new clothes. We were able to get some food, and then we were transferred to another country, to the Gambia, because the Gambia, the organization we worked for, had no representation in Senegal. So they said, "We have to have you in the Gambia while you're waiting." So they took us to the Gambia, where we stayed in another hotel. And on the 5th day, there was a tropical storm.
Oh no.
My husband and I, at the time, were on the beach. We got totally wet, but we were in the open on the beach, like this, like you said, like this downpour. And when we got back to our hotel, palm trees had fallen on the roofs of the room next to ours and the other room. And our room was okay.
Unbelievable.
So that is unbelievable. And you probably think I'm making that up, but
And
honestly,
all
I
this
swear to God.
happened like in the space of a month, probably.
And in the end, that was a month. But my holiday was supposed to be just a weekend break.
Yeah, 2
So
days.
that was my disaster holiday. That was the weekend break that turned into a month's odyssey. And in the end, we never ever got back to Guinea-Bissau. From that, we waited for 2 weeks to see if the fighting stopped, to see if we could go back, and we couldn't. And we were repatriated back to Spain and back
So,
to England and Germany. I was at that time. I was repatriated back to Germany. My husband was repatriated back to Portugal,
yeah.
and yeah.
And who
So
paid
there
for
you
the
are.
repatriation? Did you have to pay for it?
The volunteer organisation that we
Oh,
were
okay.
working for. Uh-huh.
Okay. That's an
So we were working.
incredible story. As Gemma said, wow, what an interesting, exciting story. That's unbelievable.
But that
And
was you can't beat that for a worse holiday, can you? Because that was
no,
go away
it's
for one night.
yeah, that's unbeatable. That
You
is,
don't even get home. No.
I mean, three disasters, one after the other,
One
in
after the
close
other, yeah.
succession.
But we were very lucky. I mean, we were fine. We were
Yeah,
healthy.
yeah.
There were people poor people in Guinea-Bissau who were caught in the fighting and they couldn't go home. I mean, that was their home. So we were very lucky. And we found each other. After that, we decided that was it. We weren't going to separate ever again. So I wouldn't have my husband if none of that had happened. I said that was a turning point in my life, a watershed moment. Here is some more vocabulary. Can you put watershed moment in the chat file?
A watershed moment. Well, if
Mm,
those occurrences didn't bring you together, then nothing would. If that didn't bring you
mm,
close together, surviving those
exactly.
experiences.
Exactly. But a watershed moment, Craig is putting it in that's a nice phrase in English. And that's a moment in your life where you have to decide where the water either goes right or left. It's like a very important junction in your life where it's going to determine the rest of a good part of your future. And in actual fact, this is exactly what it changed my future. It changed my husband's future. I had been living in Germany, and I never thought I would end up in Spain. You know, and yeah. No,
Alejandro said
I
that was a
was
real
not.
story, right? I
That
thought you
was
were making it up.
absolutely real. I wasn't at all. No, absolutely. Swear. Yeah.
Gemma, it doesn't have to be like such a disastrous story. It could be like a bad hotel you stayed in, or
Yeah.
it could be a time you missed a flight. It could be something simple, something basic. The idea is to
Yeah.
come and join us and practice your English. So you're welcome
Hmm.
to come and join us if you want to. I'll put the link in the chat again for anyone who wants
Hmm.
to share a
Yeah.
story. But I think maybe
Yeah.
after those disasters, we
They were
should talk
they
about
were too
something a bit more
complicated. Something nice.
positive. Let's talk about something nice. Let's talk about dream vacations that we've had.
Oh,
Because a
yeah.
vacation or a holiday can be good or bad. So we've looked at the bad. Let's look at the good.
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you about the very first vacation or holiday I had with my wife, which was to
Oh.
Ireland. And
Mm.
it was the first time we'd traveled together.
Hmm.
So it's always a bit anxious when you have a
This was
partner and
so this was before India and the diarrhea.
a long time before, yeah, a long
Okay.
time before. This was really we'd only known each other for about a year, and
Hmm.
we wanted to travel together. And when you're traveling together for a long time, Lynn, and people watching
Hmm.
probably know that you get to know people really well if you're
You
traveling
do.
for a few weeks. So we're
And
a bit
it
nervous.
can also be watershed moments because I know some people who've gone away on holiday and that's actually finished their relationship.
Yeah, people break up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they realize what
Mhm.
they're really like when you have to
Yes,
share
you're
a
on your own
bus for
holiday.
12 hours, or
Uh-huh.
in this
Yeah.
case, in Ireland, going across on the ferry. We had backpacks, so these were the days before suitcases and wheels. We were carrying our clothes on our back. We had more than one change of underwear and a toothbrush, but we were carrying everything on our back. And we decided to tour around Ireland. We rented a car in Dublin and went south. And well, first we went west and then we went south. And the idea was we wanted to stay in some of the famous Irish bed and breakfasts because, well, two reasons. First of all, we heard they were absolutely lovely, which they are. Beautiful countryside houses and farms, and they cook you a fantastic breakfast that lasts all day. So you only have to have 2 meals a day because they're very, very filling. And the idea was to do that, but we couldn't afford, we didn't have enough money to do that every day. So we took a tent. And the idea was we were camping for a couple of days, and then we went to stay in a bed and breakfast. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful time. It was very peaceful, a very relaxing holiday, seeing the Irish countryside. It was very green. People were lovely and friendly. Everybody we met wanted to talk to us and know about us, and they asked us questions. Everyone was so talkative. And the Irish have a fantastic sense of humour. That's one thing I loved about meeting people and getting to know them, was their sense of humour. And unfortunately, we did go in August, and unfortunately, from all of the month of August, we had 3 days when it didn't rain. Wow. And it wasn't, in August, in the middle of the summer. So that gives you an idea of why Ireland is so green. And it was rain most of the time, that very fine rain that you can hardly see, and you think, oh, it's not, we'll just walk in this, we're not, and then in 2 seconds you're completely wet, you're completely drenched. It's that very, very fine rain that gets you wet immediately. So most of the time we were driving around in our car with our clothes, our socks and our underwear hanging from the wind mirror and hanging from the windows, trying to dry our clothes because we'd been camping.
But you had a car. That was good. Yeah. That was good.
Trying to dry the tent in the bed and breakfast places. But it was a lovely, lovely trip, and we just spent about 3.5 weeks in the Irish countryside. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's very special to me because it was the first proper holiday, the first time I'd been away with my wife, and we realised that yes, we did enjoy travelling together, and we've been travelling together ever since.
Do you know? I think that was only when I went with my husband on that party. It was only the second weekend that we had been away. We had gone to another area together. No, actually, I didn't go with him there. No, that was our first trip as well. I think that was our first trip.
So it's all those disasters that cemented the relationship.
All those disasters, but I'm quite impressed that you say that you were there and you only had 3 days of sun and you still remember it being so lovely. Because in my other nightmare experiences, one of my holidays that I remember was a nightmare was in Scotland where it rained. And it was a disaster and we couldn't do anything. And so after a week, we cut the holiday short because it was so miserable. So you must have just been madly in love, you see, and then it didn't matter that it was wet. Maybe.
I think that's part of it. We were madly in love, but also with Ireland, it might rain for a couple of hours in the morning and then the sun comes out. So you're driving along, you think, let's go for a walk. And then after half an hour, it starts raining again. So you run back to the car and then the sun comes out. So it's constantly changing. And we call that changeable weather. It's very changeable weather. So I think, and also we spent a lot of time driving and seeing the countryside as well. So it wasn't all walking in the fields.
In the fields,
Alejandro says, my wife and I stayed in a cottage resort for 6 months in Truckee, Sierraville, California.
For 6 months, Alejandro. That's a long time for a holiday.
What did you do there?
In a cottage resort. So what did you do for 6 months?
Do you want to come in and tell us about it, Alejandro? Do you want to join us live and tell us about your experience? You're welcome to do that.
Wow. I mean, 6 months in one place, that's something.
That's a long time.
I've never done a holiday in one place for 6 months. I've travelled, not for 6 months, but for 3 months is the longest trip I've ever done. Have you ever travelled for more than 3 months is the longest trip?
When I was very young, I travelled in India for 2.5 months.
Wow.
And then 2 months in Thailand.
Yeah, but not for 6. No, 6 is
But
a
not for
lot, isn't it?
6.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
6.
no. 2.5 months is, well, 2 months it was really that I actually travelled. It was 2 months. Yeah. Wow. Not bad.
Okay, not bad. Well, I think we have time for one more. So, which of your
Uh-huh.
3 would you like to
Alejandro said
choose?
it was a long and nice experience, but actually it was not a holiday exactly. So it was kind of like a working holiday, was it? Were you working? Uh-huh.
Or were you
Yeah.
hunting in the forest there?
Wow. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah,
I've
yeah.
never heard of that place in California. I've never heard of Truckee.
No. Oh, you were helping your
Ah,
partner.
okay, right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a long time. I think 6 months to be on holiday and to stay for 6 months in one place. I think I would find that quite a long time. You have to have some kind of activity, don't you? You know, and when you're traveling from place to place, you kind of have activity because you have to find your way around and see what you want to see and do different things. But
Well,
like
in
in
theory,
one
though,
place,
Lynn, now that your
I'm not
kids have
sure I
grown
could do
up,
it.
in theory, you could. Oh
Mhm.
no, not because of your husband's job, but one thing we've been thinking about is maybe going somewhere for 6 months. Because as a teacher who works online all the time,
Yes,
I
you
could
could do
work
that.
anywhere if I've got
Yeah,
Wi-Fi. So that's
yeah,
something
yeah,
we
yeah.
may do in the future.
Yeah, yeah, maybe me too, if I can persuade my husband to change
Persuade your
his job.
husband to. Good luck with that.
Or maybe I'll go and I can do Zoom calls with my husband here. I can take my camera and show him.
Yeah, give him a guided tour.
Yeah, give him a guide.
So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think we've got time for one more. So you choose a positive, upbeat story
Positive
to
one,
finish on.
right? Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we actually both chose New Zealand, didn't we? That was interesting. We for a dream vacation. You had it as one of your best holiday experiences,
Yes.
and I had it as a beautiful holiday experience too. My experience was the first time I went to New Zealand. Since then, I've been to New Zealand a lot because my sister moved there, then my parents followed her. So my family are in New Zealand now. Um, so I have been to New Zealand many, many times now. But this was the very first time I went to New Zealand. And this is the time when I had 2 months holiday. I actually went to New Zealand for 3 months. The first month we went to visit friends. I went to visit friends, but then I had actually taken my bicycle, and then my boyfriend of the time came with his bicycle, and we spent 2 months cycling around the North Island and the South Island of New Zealand. And I found that was a fantastic holiday. And it was for many different reasons. I loved the adventure of it. I liked the personal challenge because it was really challenging for me because I hadn't actually cycled that far. I was considerably younger. I was only 20 something when I did it. I think I was about 24 or something. So I was obviously fitter, but it's still a challenge to cycle. I mean, on the bicycles, we had packs, we had the tent, we had our food, we had our clothes, our sleeping bags. So the bikes were quite loaded up. And of course, from New Zealand, I said it's a potted European landscape. And when you say something is potted, it's like I think New Zealand, the two islands, is all kinds of landscapes of Europe in two islands.
Because
So
it's
it's
really
like
long. Because it's really long
you
and it's so
exactly.
diverse.
So you have all the climates. So you have like the fjords that you get in Norway are in the South Island. You have deserts in the South Island. In the North Island, you have tropical. So it's kind of like Mediterranean beaches like Greece, or, it's beautiful sands, beautiful areas. Then you have areas that are very green and lush, like Ireland, or Germany. You have forests. You have everything, and so I
Thermal
think
springs.
and thermal springs, like in Iceland. You have volcanoes. You have geysers. What else do you have? You have earthquakes.
Glaciers.
Glaciers, that's right. Mountains, snowy peaks, rugged The west coast of the South Island is beautiful. You have lakes like in Scotland, you have lochs, you have everything. So if you don't want to travel so far, just go. Well, you have to travel a long way to get to New Zealand. But when you get to New Zealand, in the two islands, you see everything
Yep,
of landscapes. And
absolutely.
the wonderful thing about going on a bicycle, of course, is that you experience it all so much slower. So you really, there were some very daunting hills and passes which were very difficult to cycle up and then cycle down. We were on roads where there was not a soul on the roads. There was nobody on the roads. They were completely deserted. And I put finally, as a little piece of vocabulary for people, I discovered there the joy of a six pack. Now, a six pack, do you know what a six pack is? I don't know if the people know what a six pack is.
There's
A
two possibilities, aren't there?
The six pack is the 6 cans of beer that come together in one handy pack. And every day, because on the bicycles we couldn't carry a lot of food supplies because it was more weight. We already had the tent and everything. And so every day when we were finally getting to the destination campsite, which was usually on the outskirts of a very small village or town. And so when we passed through the town, we used to stop in the local store, and we always used to buy the ingredients for our dinner that night, whatever it was going to be, like a packet of pasta, because we couldn't carry stuff with us. So we had to buy it, like 1 tin of tuna, packet of pasta, but we would always buy a 6 pack of beers. And as soon as we got back on the bikes, we used to, before we got to the campsite, we used to drink the first beer because it was like the cycling of the day was almost finished. So before we got back on the bicycles, we'd drink one. So only 4 were having to be carried on the bikes. And then we would get to the campsite. And when we were setting up the tent and unpacking the bikes, then we would have the second beer. And then the third beer was with our dinner. And then we used to go up to bed, we go to bed, and then we were knackered and we were fast asleep until the next day. But when you do that for 2 months and that becomes your life, I can't tell you, it's a completely different mindset. The only thing you think about when you wake up is your destination in the evening, and it's just cycling and road between, and a mountain and a downhill and a struggle and an uphill. And I don't know, it's just so your whole vision of the world and your life completely changes, you
You've
know.
got a cycling partner, did you see?
Have I, Alejandro? You'll come with me. The thing is, at my age now, I don't know whether I could do it, but I would truly love to. I have to say, you know, in your mind, you're still the young person you were then, but I'm not sure whether this body would do it. But I don't know. If I maybe I'd have to do it now. I don't think if I wait until I retire, I think that could be too late.
Well, they've got these e-bikes now that would help you up the hills,
That's
so you
true.
could do
Yeah,
it with an
that's
e-bike.
with an e-bike you could do it. You're right. You're right. An e-bike might be a possibility. Yeah. Uh-huh. But that was a fantastic holiday. What was
What?
your New Zealand holiday like then?
What before that? What time of year did you go? Because you wouldn't have been able to cycle
Summer.
around. Yeah, it must have been the summer because the South
It was the
Island
summer.
freezes over
The
in the
South, yeah,
winter.
and the South Island was very cold, and we hit very bad weather in the South Island too.
Yeah.
Lots of rain, really strong winds. Once I nearly got blown off my bike, and that was an adventure
Wow.
into a I don't know how can I say that. It was a waterway, like a canal that had really steep edges. It was bringing water, I think, down from the mountain to some kind of water reserve system for a city a long way away. And we cycled alongside a road that was next to this huge canal, but it had concrete sides. And I remember there was such wind, and I had to stop my bike, and the wind was blowing me into this canal. And in the end, I had to lie flat on the ground, holding my bike because to stand up, it would have swept me, and it was quite scary. So we
Wow.
had little adventures like that as well. But
Wow.
the South Island was dangerous. It was more remote, so things could happen to you in the South Island. The North Island was more inhabited. But there's, now this was in the 1990. We were there over the new year of 1990. I mean, 30 years on, there are 3 million more people live in New Zealand.
Wow. Yeah.
When I went there in 89, there was just 3 million people, and 3.5 million people. And I think there are 6 million people live in New Zealand now. So, I mean, it's probably more inhabited. There are also more cars and more everything. But when we went 30 years ago, it was very empty. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think when I was there with my wife, it was about the same time period, and it was empty. We also visited both islands, but not as energetically as you, Lynn. We drove in a car lent to us by some friends because I'm lazy, and we were there for a month.
Us. You were probably one of those cars that passed us.
Knocked you off the road. Yeah, beep, 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 beep. So I've got very good friends who are working there in Wellington, and we spent some time with them when we first arrived. And then they said, we've got 2 cars, take one of our cars, which was really generous of them.
Yeah.
So, but I just loved it because it was...
Kiwis are generous, though. Kiwis
They are.
I think the Kiwi people, they're very friendly, very generous. Yeah.
They're very open, very friendly people, very welcoming. And like you said, Lynn, the scenery is stunning. And it was very remote in some areas, and I loved the Maori culture aspect. There's a lot of culture in New Zealand. So we went to some villages and saw some Maori culture. Beautiful forests in the north of the South Island. There's a wonderful forest.
Redwoods,
kauri trees.
Kauri trees, amazing. Yeah.
And we slept in. They've got. You probably know. There's a kind of a chain called backpackers hostels.
Yes, yeah.
And we stayed in backpackers hostels all the time, and they were cheap, and they were lovely, and they were friendly, and you met other travelers. You could exchange stories.
Yeah. Well, that was, when you said you were in Ireland and you used to stay in the bed and breakfast, but you couldn't afford it all the time. So sometimes you were camping. Well, for us, when it was raining a lot, we treated ourselves and we would stay in the backpackers with the bikes so that we didn't have to put the tent up in pouring rain. If it was really bad weather, we would go to a backpackers, and it was nice because you met other people. But it was also nice on the campsites too. They have very good campsites. But one thing that really impressed me was it's such an adventure-centered country. You can do pretty much anything there. They've got some crazy outdoor sports, and they're so into the adventure side of things. So we did things like bungee jumping off a bridge with a bungee rope, going through caves to see the glowworms. We went scuba diving. We saw whales. We swam with dolphins as well. It was one of the best experience of my life, swimming with dolphins. And it was just like everywhere you went, there was something interesting to do. So it made a huge impression on me because for those reasons. And it's also very safe. The other thing is New Zealand is a very safe country, not just from the security of personal security, like there's not a lot of violent crime or anything like that. It's a safe country to go and travel in, but it's also safe. There's no dangerous animals or insects in New Zealand. Whereas if you go to Australia, they do have poison.
Everything can kill you in Australia.
And they have poisonous snakes and spiders and everything. But in New Zealand, there's nothing in nature that can kill you. So that's nice. Except maybe the bungee jump.
And the strong wind, maybe.
Or the strong wind. Yeah, that's true.
So Alejandro's saying that meeting people from different cultures is the best thing. I agree. Yeah, the traveling is the people you travel. It's about the people you travel with, and if you're traveling alone, it's the people you meet along the way. That's the beauty of traveling. But also, it opens your mind. I mean, I started traveling at a very young age, and I just learned so much about the world by meeting people and learning about cultures.
You do.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I used to be more into extreme sports when I was younger, Alejandro. But these days, for me, an extreme sport is going for a fast walk. At the moment, that's the most adventurous I get these days.
You may be if you've got diarrhea and you need a toilet.
If you see me walking along the beach, either I'm exercising or I'm looking for a toilet. One or the other. Every 2 weeks, usually, Alex, but the thing is that we're taking a break now because we're teachers over here in Spain and there's no one to teach in August because everybody goes on holiday. So Lynne and I have really no option but to rest in August and charge up our batteries.
It's so hard to rest. What are we going to do?
I don't know. But we will be back, Alex, in September, and we usually do these live streams every 2 weeks. So there you are. You're welcome to join us in September. If you want to know when they will be, just follow Mansion Inglés on Facebook, as some of you are because you're listening on Facebook. Or you could follow Mansion Inglés on Twitter or on other platforms as well. That's where we usually post the live streams. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Craig from mansioningles.com, which is a website for Spanish speakers where you can improve your English. And every week there's an audio podcast where I get on the microphone with a good friend and colleague of mine, not Lynne, but another guy called Reza, and we podcast about English every week. So look for that if you are a podcast listener. And again, there's a break in August, but if you want to improve your speaking, go and have a look at my website, englishcraig.com. All the information and prices are over there, and I'll be starting with the courses for conversation and speaking English again in September. Lynne?
Yeah, so what am I supposed to do now? I've lost it now. Oh, I have to tell you who I am. Yes, so I'm Lynne.
Who are you, Lynne?
I'm Lynne. And I'm an online teacher. My website is putitlikethis.com, and I specialize in tailor making courses. So if you have a specific objective in English, it could be something like maybe you have to make a presentation, maybe you have a particular trip in mind that you want to prepare for, maybe you want to do an exam, okay? Maybe you're a teacher and you need to teach in the medium of English and you want to improve your pronunciation or your presentation skills. Whatever your objective is, you can talk to me about it, and then I try to design a course so that you can find your own voice in English and you can feel comfortable speaking English and saying the kind of things that you want to say, not the kind of things that the textbooks teach you all the time. But I also have students who follow textbooks, so if you want to follow a textbook, you can also do that with me. I'm quite versatile.
Very flexible.
That's because I tailor make the course for the students. So I will do what you want to do, and I'll try to do it so that you actually learn and improve. That's my job. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you after August. Thank you, Alejandro, for saying that. And yeah, Gemma, you did mention if you are in the Valencia area after the summer in September, Gemma, then let me know. And if I'm not busy, maybe we can meet you and have a coffee or something.
Yes, that would be lovely, Gemma, because you are our old faithful. You have been around since the beginning, haven't you? So it would be lovely to meet you if you do.
Absolutely.
Come to Valencia.
Okay, well, we'll say goodbye. Have a wonderful summer or winter if you're in the southern hemisphere, but we'll see you again hopefully in September.
Yeah, and have a good holiday. And remember, even if it turns into a disaster, it can be a great story.
Yes.
Wonderful. It can also be a great story. The good thing about holidays is they're just different, aren't they? So they're great.
For the good and the bad.